KCF Technologies presents Industrial Transformation, Stories of Failure and Success from the Frontlines of American Manufacturing.
Welcome back to the Industrial Transformation Podcast. I am Jeremy Frank, and I'm very pleased to have two guests with me today. Katie Anderson, with whom I spoke a few months ago about her book, Learning to Lead, Leading to Learn, which focuses on the life and learnings of Mr. Isao Yoshino, a longtime Toyota employee. And we have with us today Mr. Yoshino himself, and I'm very pleased to have the chance to speak to Katie and to Mr. Yoshino together. So may I start with Mr. Yoshino? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me in the program.
Very pleased to have you and really looking forward to our conversation. And welcome also back, Katie.
Thanks, Jeremy. I'm really thrilled to be back here and to have Mr. Yoshino joining us as well.
Wonderful. Well, I'd like to just dive right in. And we were just speaking for a moment about how the book is really a wonderful story about failures and especially the learnings that come from failures. And as we talked, Katie, that's certainly no accident. But I think, Mr. Yoshino, it was just interesting to hear you start with that description, that's what you found, the opportunity to share those stories that you learned from, rather than not sharing them. And Could you just talk a little bit about why you feel that way?
Oh, okay. Well, actually, I have so many memories about my life with Toyota for years, but most of my memories are the failure stories because I didn't succeed and I failed so many times. And of course, I wanted to hide it, from anybody. I don't want to share it with anybody because it's not fun. It's not comfortable. However, the way when we meet, when I met with Katie Anderson, she started asking so many questions about my career, about everything, about my experience, and the way she asked me makes me feel so good because of course, it's not to blame myself. It's not to find fault with all those failures, but she's very interested in how Toyota culture is and how I survive over there, and so she's interested very from the pure, reasoning because she wanted to know what is the life with a big working in a Toyota and what is the story of the success, the story of the failure, how did it happen. So she is interested in how I lived in within Toyota. So that's why it was 2015, and so I decided, okay, this lady is, maybe I can share with all my memories. I started remembering all those old memories, which I just tried to forget about it. So it was very, very interesting that she just triggered me to speak up, and so I just at the time that I started digging down, back on my old memories, and so just one by one it comes up. So that's how we started working together with the book project.
And the book is fantastic. I would really encourage, as I described before, I would encourage listeners to read the book. It's a fantastic series of stories, especially because it's just a very honest story of the telling of learning. And I wanted to ask, how long? So in 2015, how long had you been retired from Toyota at that point?
Well, actually, I retired 2004. I was still in the United States, then I returned back to Japan 2007 January. So that was, and then I started teaching in a university based in Nagoya. And so, what was your question?
Oh, just when you were there. I actually don't know if Katie mentioned, but I have actually spent a bit of time in Japan myself. We were in
Okay.
the professor. I was working on a PhD of engineering at Penn State University, and my professor Koopman was teaching a class at Tokyo Institute of Technology in the year 2000, and we spent a semester there teaching.
Really? 2000. I was still in the U.S.
So you were in Florida at that time, I believe, right?
Wow, right. Temporarily, 1.5 year, I was in Florida because I was making boat over there. About 2001, and it was just project was closed. So I was in the U.S. and you were in Japan at the time.
Yeah.
Ah, I see. I see.
Actually, that leads. There's somebody. I have a whole list of things I'm interested to ask you, but let me jump to two things related to that. One is it was clear in the story and in the way Katie described it that from a young age you were very interested in living overseas,
Yeah,
and I think especially you were interested in the United States.
yeah, because
Uh,
that was the first first people that I ran into when I was a small boy.
that's why.
Uh
Okay,
huh.
can you
Yeah.
tell us more about that?
Well, actually, it was. I don't remember how old I was, but I was maybe I don't know, but I'm a small boy. But right after the war is finished, and so but so many American soldiers are living in the U.S. not in Japan, and they are traveling across the country. And I was living in the country, but my train station is very close to my house, just maybe 10 minutes walk. So I was, my young kids, I was, playing with my friends in the near the station. Then one day the train came in, then train stopped over there. Then I saw so many American soldiers sitting in the train in the seat, and they threw something to the boys like us on the outside of the train. So they threw the chocolate
Hmm.
and but chocolate we couldn't get chocolate from US. So we just all the kids just jump in the chocolate. They threw it a couple of times. So it was our first encounter with American people and American product. And so that was really the first encounter with American kind of culture. So this is chocolate. So you know, then I start dreaming about okay, what kind of country is this? Now just we a couple of years earlier, that we fought with each other. We are killing each other. And then right now, they are smiling. They are throwing something to us. And so it's very very big shock to us. Okay, okay, this is the people who used to fight. We used to try to kill each other. So it was a great experience for me. Okay, so what a difference! They are smiling and they're just giving something to the small kids like us. So that is the first encounter, and so I start dreaming about okay, what kind of country is America? We at that time we didn't have any TV, just on the radio and newspaper, and so it's very small little information about other countries. So that was really the first foreigners I ran into.
So that's just I'm so that's just so such an interesting beginning to hear how that happened. It's something relatively simple, but it planted a seed. If you fast forward then from the book,
Mhm.
when you were in the early '80s involved in training the General Motors workers for the NUMMI
Right,
factory.
right.
So you're then 20 or 30 years later, you're playing this extremely important role at, that's affecting some of the biggest companies in America and Japan,
Hmm.
and they're now back. They're coming to Japan to be trained on how to produce cars.
Right,
The Toyota way. Can you
right.
talk about? Did that seem, I don't know, is it special to you, or it just seems like it's an amazing situation to be in from that
It is.
beginning?
Yes, it is. I was so lucky because by the time I was well, actually, I'm a non-engineer. So non-engineer people work, people employee of Toyota. We change a job. We just transfer to the other department every 4 or 5 years. We call it rotation system. So I was second or third, assignment, and I was not maybe five or six, and I was sent from other department to the training department. It was 82, and it was a time that the Toyota get together with the sales company, become two sales company, manufacturer company, got together, merged together in 1982, and it was a huge event. Then right after that, Toyota decided to work together with General Motors, and they set up a joint venture. It was a huge news for Toyota people. And so then I was sent to the training department. Then, and they decided knew me. They decided to send the new me employee shop floor workers and group leaders, team leaders to Japan for train to receive training. And I was in the training department, so they decided to, okay, well, Yoshino, just you become the chief of that training. You have to establish a team for that training program. So I was assigned to the newly established the section, and I have to hire people not from outside, from inside. So it was a great opportunity for that. I was so lucky to run into to be working in the place. Then new people came in. It was a very eye-opening experience for me because one reason, because we've been told by GM managers who came in a little bit earlier that, oh, okay, Yoshino, just your congratulations, you're the first manager to train new workers. However, I don't envy you because they are terrible people. They can you believe it? Just I didn't meet them the first time that they start, talking to me about terrible people you have to handle. So myself and John Shuk was so surprised what they're talking about, you know. And so I had, I've been thinking about, okay, why they are talking about their own people like that. But by the time we received 1984, we received in June, we received the first group about around 30 people. We found out they are very nice people. So totally different from the information that we received 2 months earlier. So that was really great opportunity for me to, okay, what I heard from the managers from GM is so different from what I see when ran into them on June. So we have to meet and we have to experience by myself rather than judging something out of the secondhand information. So it
Hmm.
was anyway. So it was a great encounter. All those workers, nice people, down to earth, and the big smile, and they are very eager to learn. So what a nice people are they? And so they did not betray me for the next. I don't remember how many groups I received, but it's everybody was very nice people.
If you reflect back, so I mean, that experience is just unbelievably interesting. I mean, for anybody who doesn't know the story, who's listening, go back and read the story of Numi and that joint venture. That it went from being the worst performing General Motors plant to the
Oh yeah,
best in a short
yes,
amount of time. It's unbelievable
it
outcome.
is. Yeah.
Can you speak? I mean, if you look back on that now, what are we, 40 years later?
Mhm.
Why do you think there was such a discrepancy between what the managers told you and what they had experienced versus what you experienced with those same people?
Well, actually, people. We found John and I to talk about very often what makes this happen, and because they spend total of 3 weeks in Toyota environment, and we treat them nice because they are very important guests, and probably that was really the first time for them, those workers, first time to be treated like that,
Hmm.
very just like a human being. And they keep saying that the bosses just don't come down to the shop floor. So I don't know how he or she looks like in the office. So they found out what a huge difference. Even though we are manufacturers in the U.S., we manufacture in Japan, but what a huge difference it makes. And they are so surprised the way that the way workers are treated in Toyota. And when they compares with the way they are treated in Fremont, California, what a huge difference! They witnessed. They they soaked in that environment for 3 weeks. So experiencing by themselves all those cultural differences, then they found out, okay, this we feel very comfortable with this culture, with this treatment. So you know actually having the real experience in the certain culture in a certain period of time, then they totally change their mindset. They started not totally changed, but they started to change their attitude, the viewpoint, how to treat people, how to be treated, how you want to be treated. They saw it every single day. So actually, to make a long story short, actually put into yourself into the practice, actual practical experience is a very important a way to make things happen.
Hmm.
That makes sense.
Did Definitely. Did it make you feel any different about? So I picture you having sort of an idealized view of America that had gone back to your early childhood. Did that experience make you feel any different about the, I don't know, American approach to business,
Oh yeah,
or
yeah.
why the management misperception was the way that it was?
Well, actually, we read books about American management style, but we did not have a chance to experience talking with them. But actually, before we received workers in June in 1984, we received a GM ex-GM managers who are assigned to NUMI, and because they GM send their managers to NUMI from the other factories, and so also we send our their partners from Japan, and so in April they send 6 or 7 managers to Japan for a short period of training for just 1 week. At that time, so it was April before we received all those 30 group people in June. So two months earlier they came in. That was actually really the first time I ran into American managers from GM, and their attitude was I was so surprised with their terrible attitude. They don't want to just learn anything. Actually, they just spend, we provided all the orientation or the session just like, with the hope that they can learn something from Toyota. But their intention is not, they say, okay, they did not say it's a waste of time, but they don't pay much attention to what we're doing, try to help them out. So myself and John Suk was so surprised, what kind of people are they? They are not complaining, but they are talking about the people who will be coming to Japan in 2 months, but they are talking so badly about themselves. So what people are they? They are talking about their people so terribly, and so. And I asked John, John, what do you think? They are just complaining. They are talking, criticizing their own people, and they will be working together when they are back in Fremont, California. Why they are talking? What is their attitude? Why is that? And John was so surprised with that too. So you know because I thought that because okay, this is the way they have been treated. Those managers also have been treated like that. So then they have no other experience. So they don't want to accept any other culture. But while because they are not so the managers are treated so good because they are bragging about their very nice treatment. They have given a lot of funding from GM to buy a house in Fremont, California when they are assigned over there. While workers they do not enjoy any of those advantages. So their managers are treated so good while workers were treated so bad. So it's a huge change. Anyways, so that was very, very interesting. In April, we found out managers are still terrible. From GM and Fremont, they are assigned to Fremont. They are terrible. Workers are very, very, eager to learn something. So what a big difference. That was my first impression.
Wow, it's fascinating. So as we were talking briefly, so my company is working closely with both of those companies today. So,
Mhm.
40 years later, Toyota and General Motors, things have changed, but some things haven't changed as that much. Um,
Mhm.
there's something from the book that relates directly to this that from Katie's book, Learning to Lead, Leading to Learn. And I don't know if I have the quote exactly right, but I believe Katie, if you correct me, the quote is that you said the only secret to Toyota is the attitude to learning.
Hmm.
Do
Yep.
I have that right, Katie?
I almost
Almost.
I mean, yes, the only secret to Toyota is its attitude towards learning. And Mr. Yoshino went on to say, we don't even notice and we take it for granted.
Mhm. Yeah, that's correct.
And what I'm hearing is that that's it's not just it's not a person thing. It's not like there's a difference between an American or a Japanese person or a General Motors person or a Toyota person, as it more is like the I don't know, the expectations set by leadership, perhaps, that sets the attitude. Or maybe you tell me, where do you think that attitude comes from?
You're talking to me or talking to Katie?
To Mr. Yoshino, where do you
Oh,
Toyota's attitude to learning? How did you experience
well,
that, and where does it really
actually,
come from?
you know what? That was really the first time for entire Toyota to receive workers from overseas countries. First time for me and first time to everybody. So nobody has ever had an experience work together with workers within Toyota history. That's the first time everything. So we are ready to learn. We have to learn. Of course, we have to ready to. We want to learn. We are ready to learn something from them. So that is our attitude. And so the people from GM also they are eager to learn Toyota production system, and also they had a chance to learn something totally new. It's just cultural differences. So they are learning two different things. One is how to make good cars, the Toyota production system. That is the skill, working skill. Same time, they learn how to treat people because they are treated so nice by us. I did not think that we are treated so specially, but we treated just like others. So we treated just people that we speak different language, but we I decided to treat them just like others, just like I treated John Shook as the same staff members as others. So we treat them just the same way as we treated other people. So workers feel very happy to be treated like that, and that was really the very basic, base of the understanding of the different culture. So they enjoyed Japanese culture who treated equally, you know. And there is a difference between top management and the workers levels very close, and so they enjoyed because they spend more than 8 hours a day with the workers, with their partners, Japanese partners. So they feel, to the bones, they felt it. Okay, what is this one? It's because the bosses always come down to the chauffeur, say hi to the workers. The distance from between them is very close. They witness it every single day. So they like it so much. And so they are determined within the 3 week train, they determined when I come back to Fremont, I would do the same way as my partner do over here in Japan. So they are determined, and they expand their witness to learn something. So they determined to do the same thing when I'm back to California. So that is very powerful because they learn something very important thing, and the first time in their own life, and they are determined. While GM managers, I don't think they learn and so much they are not ready to learn, they are not determined, so that's a huge difference.
Hmm. One of the pillars, something that I really caught me in the stories in the book that Katie pulled out was the pillars of the principles of the Toyota way, but that respect for people. And I think, more broadly, one of the descriptions that she makes is that respect for people is actually more concise, and respect for perhaps humanity is a more accurate translation
I think so,
of
yeah.
that pillar. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Actually, when we say respect, I respect you, that means sometimes people take it, okay, it's not good, but it's lower rank people will admire people up there because the people up there has a lot of success, and so people admire. So it's not as equal as admire within Toyota. The respect, what respect means to other people. So respect is I respect you. That means I will listen to you. I will accept your opinion because that your opinion comes out of your own experience, or that is meaningful. So I take it, as an important input to me. So we treat people as equal, and also we have to understand that everybody has a different way of thinking, so we have to accept it. So that is the meaning of respect. There are so many other bit deeper meaning of respect, and so we did not double check with what we mean by respect, because you know it's already there. It's a culture. So sometimes we don't even talk about it, discuss about it, but that is a culture. And so that is what respect means. It's not easy to explain because nobody had ever asked me what the respect means at Toyota, only in the last 10 years. So I start talking with foreigners, but within Toyota we don't even talk about what respect means to us, because it's just like air. that we feel we breathe the air just like as natural. So respect is something just like air to us.
Hmm. Just natural as air. I like that. Is that is that also true? Well, actually, I want to ask one thing, and then I want to ask if it's true in another context. Is is that true in your experience for most Japanese companies, or is that special about Toyota within Japan as well?
Actually, that's a good question. My answer is I don't know, but because I never worked with other department with other companies. Of course, I have a lot of chance to talk with the people. However, within Toyota, that is very very dense. That culture is very dense and very very, important, and we believe that makes us feel good. But in other company, I feel that the company, the other, competing companies, one of the companies like Nissan, for example. I'm company N, with initial N. Um, Actually, I feel so sorry about the people at that company because my cousin used to work for Nissan, and but he's always complaining. So I don't know. I wonder why is in Tokyo, and I've been wondering why he's complaining about the big company where he works for. Because whenever I meet with him, I talk about my experience with Toyota, and he talks about the company with his own company. What a huge difference! He doesn't feel like he's treated good. So it's a it's a that tells me the lesson that a feeling that maybe Toyota is not too different. However, you know, Toyota has its own culture, which makes me feel good. While some people, like my cousin, he does not feel good because he works. He was born and raised in Tokyo, and he was so happy to get a job and at that company, but he does not feel happy. So to answer your question, probably Toyota is very different. Not very, but it's different from the other company. I'm not blaming anybody, but um, Toyota is because of the top management very serious about treating people nice because it's the people who product the car. It's the people who work in the office. It's the people who sell the cars, not top management. So and the people are treated very nice, and it's just like as a one unit. And so to answer your question, probably Toyota is slightly different from other companies, and but the Panasonic and all other companies, particularly who was started by one single guy, very very important guy, very influential guy like Mr. Matsushita. So they have their own specific culture, like Panasonic or like Honda, or like Toyota.
Sure. Yeah, we certainly see. I mean, there are definitely even Toyota in America. We definitely see differences between Toyota and other companies, including other
Oh, really?
versus Toyota. Definitely, it's and I want to come back to this. It's not all good.
Mhm.
Um,
Of course,
and
of course.
actually, maybe that's good to just spend some time on that. I want to talk about the other pillar of continuous improvement, but first, we were just talking briefly before.
Mhm.
One of the things that we see is that the style of Toyota's decision making and process of thinking can sometimes be, I don't know, to an outsider frustrating. I think is maybe how
It
we
is.
were discussing. Can
Oh,
you talk a little bit about that? Because it's I think sometimes people think of Toyota being the greatest manufacturer and think that it's all perfect, but certainly there's I don't know. There's
yeah.
something. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Actually, it is true that Toyota is a little bit slower in decision making, but it's not because the reason why it's slow, it looks like slow, is because within Toyota we want to make sure that we just put all the key information in front of us. Sometimes, for example, if we want to make some decision, then we have to prepare some of the key information to base of. To be based on for your decision making. If we collect maybe if other companies just collect only five different facts in order to make some final decision, then within Toyota maybe 10 10 items we have to prepare. Sometimes it takes longer time to prepare all of the information to make sure. Then we spend more lot of time to discuss and whether it this is advantage, but it may be some disadvantage. We have spent more time to dig down more. So sometimes we are become too careful and too thoughtful. Sometimes you spend too much time to dig down more than other companies. Maybe that is one of the reasons why it takes too long time to make some final decision. But so it's good and bad. It's a good thing is that we think a little bit deeper than other companies. But the bad thing is that it sometimes we miss the chance because by the time we find some solution, make some final decision, then the other competitors just go far ahead ahead of us. But still, being that thorough thinking and the deeper thinking is not so bad. However, it depends on the timing, depends on the situation. So that is not. I don't call it weak point, but sometimes we are too careful. Yeah, we always worry about something bad, something will happen, so we have to be prepared. So sometimes we go too far on that negative side. However, as long as we know that sometimes we go to the too far to the negative side, as long as we recognize it, then we are fine. So that is maybe people call it some weak point of Toyota, and the reaction sometimes takes so long time to be careful. So we want to be careful about not making too crazy mistakes. So sometimes we just uh, uh, sometimes we are too careful.
It takes me to a story that's told in the book. The In the late 1970s and early 1980s,
Mhm.
you were my takeaway was that you were uh, quite involved in the formation of the A3 process,
Uh-huh.
and then Conpro and Hoshin Conry.
Yes.
Kind of there was some inefficiencies in decision making, where or something was happening that required change within Toyota, and you were at that time before Numi, you were very involved in that. Can you speak to those years a little bit?
Actually, yes, that was it's very interesting to see that Toyota, of course, people working so hard and we've been so successful. However, it won't last forever. So sometimes it's very interesting. Every maybe 15, every 20 years, um, the bolt, we call it the bolt, get loose. When you tighten the belt, you believe that it's gonna be stiff for the rest of the life. But actually, something happens. So it's getting loose. The bolt getting loose. So every 20 minutes, no, 20 years, that the bolt for some reason getting loose. So you have to tighten it again. So our top management always, think about how they run the company, entire company. So they look at it in the 60s. Toyota just learned so many things from Dr. Deming and from the United States also management system, and all the manufacturers in Japan learned so many things, and we just use it to make our companies so healthy. So it happened in the 60s. Then 20 years later, around late 70s, top management found out looks like we are too much accustomed to the happy or nice, very good, a performance, but we have to tighten our belt or tighten the we have to again tighten the bolt. Means it's getting looser, getting loose. So that comes from the top management, because top management is not the people working the shop floor. They are not the people who selling the car on the field, but they feel it because they are smart people. So they sense that okay, we should do something because before it's too late. So that is one of the good aspects of Toyota. And so in the late 70s, top management felt like okay, looks like the middle management or higher management, they are enjoying successful business in Japan, in overseas countries. However, their reactions or their analysis is not so good compared with that of the so many years ago. So maybe we have to do something. That is really the starting point of the Campro and which happens 79, 80s. It comes from the top management. So that tells me a lesson that top management is always very much concerned about the worst situation, not on the happiest situation, the worst situation, and prepare. So that is the attitude of top management. And so that's how it, so they discuss about the top management, then they assign Mr. Nemoto, and they tell the top management that assigned Mr. Nemoto, okay, you have to develop some program to for the higher manager, senior manager to relearn something again, which we learned in 60s. So that's how the Compro started. And I just happened to be over there. So it was great experience for me to get to know that how serious all those 40 years, 50 years old managers start learning the basic again, just like high school kids, because
Hmm.
they are serious about it. Because because they saw that top management is so serious about it. How come with me not so serious? So they they saw all those uh, um, higher management so serious about it. So all those things come from top. You know, seriousness comes from top down to lower people. So that is the beauty of Toyota's culture.
Mm. Jeremy, what I think is one of the things that has stood out to me in talking with Mr. Yoshino over the years is this concept of, as he says, about retightening the belt and how intentional Toyota has been in developing its culture, and having it so people centered, focused on learning. And there, as Mr. Yoshino said, there was the focus on quality in the '60s, and then almost 20 years later, I guess 15 years later, retightening the belt with the Con Pro program. And then again, with the publication of the Toyota Way in 2001, that again was an opportunity to retighten the belt. And now even Toyota has admitted that it's time for them to, retighten the belt. You see the president of Toyota, Mr. Toyota, talking about its culture and how they're refocusing on ensuring that everyone across the company really understands what it means to live and breathe the Toyota way. And I find that really interesting. So often we take for granted, or I don't know, we think that culture just sort of happens, but there's real intentionality around it and focus from the top, all the way from the top, and how that connects all the way to the people doing the value creation work.
Hmm. It's fascinating that you bring that up, Katie, because it's something that we're directly involved in. So, we work with a lot of auto manufacturers, and in the Toyota shops, we see that like actually up close and personal ourselves. But it's also something when I talked with Paul Akers, Toyota, there are elements within Toyota using his approach, the 2 second lean, which is sort of like a rethink on Kaizen, and kind of getting back to the roots, basically, simplifying it and removing some of the process so you can just make a very simple change, a 2 second improvement. He was talking about that's actually part of that retightening of the belt. So it is fascinating the way you describe it, Mr. Yoshino, that it is this 20-year cycle, and that the learning never stops is what I hear.
Mm.
Mhm. Well, it's a maybe coincidence, but when I look back, 60s and 80s, now 2000, because Dr. Deming, we learned Dr. Deming in 60s, 80s, we learned by ourselves and for Compro. Then 2001, Toyota Way, and Mr. Cho just started to reinforce uh, that kind of way of thinking. So it's nothing new, but he wants to double check. He wants to tighten our belt again. And so now we are at 20, 21. So we have to tighten our belt again, maybe this year. I don't know. But it's very, very interesting. We always look back what we have done, well, we have not done in the past. So many people forget about the past, that we have to look forward, but we have to look both ways, because when we want to step forward, then we have to we must have learned something from the past. So we have to look back and look back what we have learned, we have failed to learn. So I think it's a very, very interesting culture that Toyota created. And I'm very, very lucky that, and also I'm very proud of joining Toyota 1966 because that culture stayed there over there when I joined Toyota. I did not notice that this is a culture, but I feel very, very comfortable even now.
There's one thing I'm curious about. I don't recall if this was in your discussions that showed up in the book, but one of the most important characters in the development of the Toyota Way is Taiichi Ono.
Mhm.
I'm curious, what was your impression of Mr. Ono during your time at Toyota? Did you meet him? Did you see him?
Well, actually, I had never had a chance to just speak with him in person, but I just ran into him on the shop floor very, very often. And because he is, we call it go-to Gemba concept, so he always go there. And even just top management, like Eiji Toyota, he passed away now, and a long time ago. But he is a president. But whenever I saw him, he's always on shop floor, not in the office, because I was in the same building. I joined Toyota 66. My office is the third floor, and top management floor on the second floor. I don't see him. I did not see him on that building, but I saw him on shop floor because I go for some reason I went to the other department just across that plant and the truck plant and then get into that office. So I saw him very often on the shop floor. He was walking on the shop floor. So because you have to know top management always needs to know what's going on even on the shop floor in the other offices. So go to Gemba concept is just penetrated across the company, from top management to the bottom. So it's very, very interesting. We feel very close to our top management, and their attitude always care about the employees, because it's the people who make cars, not top management people. Management people are decision maker. So they decision make have their own role to play. The workers have their own role to play, and even the newcomer like me, then I have my own things to cover. So everybody has their own responsibility to cover, and so that is all those we are looking towards the same direction as just like in Hoshi Kandi items. So that is one of the biggest power of Toyota. Always, top management always try to encourage us to go to the right direction, showing them by their own attitude, not just telling us to do, but just showing by their own attitude and you know, their day to day, their comments and their actions. So that makes Toyota a little bit different from other companies.
Jeremy, one of the, Mr. Yoshino and I talked a little bit about, the difference of Taiichi Ono's his management style, and obviously it's his importance in Toyota, and how that then contrasts with Mr. Nemoto, who Mr.
Mhm,
Yoshino spent a lot more time with, and how they were sort of complementary, as what Mr. Yoshino says, big pillars of TPS, and then the more people-centered Toyota Way methodology or the concepts as well,
mhm.
and how, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes,
Mhm.
yes. I remember that. That's just you described that in the book.
Yes, yep.
Well, actually, of course, Taiichi Ono is so popular because of the father to implement, to i- s- to invent the third production system. It is true, but at the same time, not same time, but Mr. Nemoto is not so much well known in the Lean community. A little bit, but not as much as Mr. Ono. But in my personal opinion, Mr. Nemoto is another second pillar. He's a second pillar in the management because Mr. Taichi Ono is focusing on how to remove waste in the shop floor, how to make it more efficient in workers, or actually in those manufacturing side. At the same time, Mr. Nemoto is focusing on the management side, which is the beauty of Toyota because Taichi Ono is focusing on the not necessarily only manufacturing, it's how to make the product more efficiently and without any big waste. And so it mostly focus on the workers. But at the same time, Mr. Nemoto is focusing the managers level or the office workers. for example, or manager's level. So that is why I call the two pillars. Nemoto-san just wrote some books about it. Still, it's very big seller in Japan because that is one of the things which we really need to learn from him, and we call it Nemoto Credo. And I'm very I was so lucky because I was involved in that Compro project which started by Mr. Nemoto, and also um, uh, my direct boss is Mr. Sugiura. He's one of the finest guy I ever worked for in my life. And actually, I just sent an email yesterday, and he's 85, and Mr. Nemoto and Mr. Sugura is those people very influential to all the office people within Toyota. And the people did not pay much attention to that, but I do hope that the lean people will pay more attention to the role that Mr. Nemoto and Mr. Sugura did in that segment. That is two power. Yeah, that are two pillar, and that is one of the reasons why I focus on Mr. Nemoto's attitude, Nemoto's comment, and so I'm now working on that in detail. So I'm very happy to be in the group where I was so close to Mr. Nemoto. The, it's one of the traditions of Toyota. If you learn something important, then you want to carry it to from one generation to the next generation. That is part of Toyota culture.
It's so fascinating. I mean, it takes me back to where we started the conversation when you talking about the General Motors employees and the General Motors managers coming in the preparations for NUMI. A very simple way to look at it would be that the those two pillars exist, but the greater need for improvement was with the managers, not the workers.
Right.
And that would be it's something that maybe it's just easier to tell the story that relates to the actual machinery and the operations and
Mhm.
the manufacturing. But absolutely, we see that. I mean, right now the big movement that's going on is industrial transformation. Technology,
Oh,
Internet of Things. There's all this technology is coming into the factories,
mhm.
and a lot of people, I think, falsely believe that the technology is going to solve all the problems by itself. And I know, at least I think I know, that it's not, and it's because of the management needs to commit to it, and the culture of the company needs to embrace a desire for change. So I definitely hear that description of Mr. Nemoto's role sounds very impactful.
Mhm. Yep.
Well, that can I come back? So I said some time ago, and I don't want to take too much of your time. We should probably wrap up soon. But the other pillar of Toyota, continuous improvement, and I think Katie, what I drew from the way you kind of deepened it is wisdom in continuous improvement, kind of not just
Mm,
making the small changes, but also gaining knowledge and building wisdom.
yes. Chie to kaizen, so wisdom and kaizen together. And Mr. Yoshino explained to me some of his thinking around why, when the Toyota Way 2001 was translated by Toyota from Japanese to English, perhaps um, they just translated it as continuous improvement and left out the wisdom part. But that nuance seems to be really important to us in the English language, and maybe we've just focused too much on the continuous improvement kaizen. Mr. Yoshino, what do you reflect?
Uh, Continuous improvement because we put in, it's very interesting. The American people put continuous on kaizen only. We call it improvement, but American people put continuous improvement because when you put something, some kaizen on something, then it's not a one time one time action. But if you improve it something to the higher stage to make it better, make it work better, then still you have to work on that to make it a little bit further. So that means continuous, and that is what we believe is so important because it's improvement is never ending project. So we have to improve, and we keep doing that, and through all those endeavor to make it a little bit better, to make it faster, make it more efficient. Then we can develop our skill, develop our mindset. So it's so continuous improvement is not only for the workers, but it's also important for us office workers too, office people too. So all those key concepts developed by Mr. Ono or developed by Mr. Nemoto is all just can be applied to anybody, office workers or the top management, because it's very simple. The principle is very, very simple. So that is one of the reasons why Toyota has been so successful in binding, bringing everybody into one direction if we believe that is the right direction, because we are on the same page. And also even though we have the different rank in the seniority or whatever, but still we have something in common. We feel like we have something in common, overlapping. All those beliefs is overlapping, across the ranks. So that makes us feel so good. And also they Toyota just try to treat old timer very much, which is but it is not too uncommon. However, within Toyota, they always keep sending all the letters to all the old timers, retired people. Even now, just they sent me a request about the other day, about 2-3 weeks ago, that Mr. Yoshino, why don't you write some small article about your current life? And then I just sent it. And yesterday they sent me the final version, and for me to improve. So that what I'm talking about is that they are treated people nice, people working working in the office. Also, they are taking care of the people who retire 20 years, not 20 years, yeah, almost 20 years earlier. They still keep sending all the newsletter to us and ask me to write something to encourage all the old timers, because I'm still working. And so that is not bad at all.
Yeah.
And because that makes me feel like I'm still part of Toyota. And so that is one of the good things about Toyota, which is not so open to outside, but that makes me feel so good.
Yeah, it's very special. It's very special. I mean, I would also tell you, we were speaking just before we got the interview started. My experience working for Toyota as a provider is actually rather similar to that. We get treated very well.
Oh, really?
We have access. We have badges. We can go to the factories unescorted. There's actually a strong level of trust that's imparted to us as a worker within Toyota that I can. It's not. I'm sure it's not the same as being an actual member of the Toyota family, but it is. Yeah, definitely. There's something very special
Mhm,
about it. I'm
mhm,
glad to hear that.
Mm.
Well, I think that we need to begin to wrap up. I did want to mention just one little short thing, Mr. Yoshino, that Katie had passed on. That you, during your time and your interest in America, you learned to play the banjo. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, I did a little bit. Yeah.
Me too. I play the banjo also. I just think it's interesting. It's kind of a quintessential American instrument. Maybe one
Uh-huh.
day I hope to find myself in Japan. Maybe we could meet up and we could play some music together or something.
Yeah, that's why, because it's come from a countryside. I'm a country boy, and
Yeah.
all those things. There's no electricity, so it's not electric guitar, but it's all no power. But you can play it, while there is no electricity, and very, very down to earth music. So I like it so much.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so I like American culture too, but particularly countryside, because people are the same, even though we speak different language, different culture. Still, the bottom thing is that the same, because we are people, and we want to be treated nice. We want to treat people nice. Same thing. So that's one of the main reasons why I like bluegrass music rather a country music. But bluegrass music is very, very, very specific segment, but I still like it so much.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's the kind of music I like also.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that's fun. Well, Katie, I wanted to, as we wrap up, I wanted to just ask if you have any thoughts to share, especially since the two of you spent so much time together, and also just remind people, the learning to lead, leading to learn is a a bestseller on Amazon, and also just anything you'd like to share for the listeners.
Sure. Well, it's, I was reflecting for myself how even though Mr. Yoshino and I at this point have had thousands of hours of conversation, I still get inspired listening to his stories and the wisdom and that comes from them as well. And I would say, one of the greatest joys in my life has been able to partner with Mr. Yoshino to bring those stories together in Learning to Lead, Leading to Learn, and weaving it together in that tapestry of both the person pursuing like a personal goal and purpose, and then intersecting that with the things we discover in life about um, leading and interacting and helping other people as well. And in our times now, we need a lot of inspirational stories. And so I really encourage people to take advantage of the inspiration of the pages of Learning to Lead, Leading to Learn, and to dive into some of that history that we didn't even talk about or we just scratched the surface on here today. There's so much richness of inside stories as well. So thank you again for having us both on the show this time, Jeremy. And as always, people can reach out and connect with us both, and all the information's in my book or at kbjanderson.com.
Wonderful. Yeah, my pleasure, truly. This has been just a wonderful conversation. And I would ask you, Mr. Yoshino, anything that you would like to share in closing?
Not really, but I forgot to mention that Katie came in 2015 and she wanted to write a book. Not she didn't study like that, but I learned so many things out of joint work together with Katie, and because I learned so many things because she just opened the door for me to talk about my own failure story. Because otherwise, if I did not meet Katie somewhere in the Long Beach, and then we start talking about it, then this could not have happened. So it was, who you run into in your life is so important. That will trigger,
Mm,
that will open the door to the new world. That happened to me at the
mm,
age of 70s. I can't
Hmm.
believe it. So I keep learning so many something new, and also because I just talk about all those my failure story, which is the first time for me to open it up, because that makes me feel so good. Because I wanted to hide it from anybody, but I don't want to hide it. I don't need to hide it because it's just a fact. And as long as I can learn, actually, I learn so many things. And so I, I really appreciate the way Katie treats me as a friend, as a partner, whatever. So I really appreciate how it's so important who you uh, run into in your life and then change your life. That's
mm.
what happened to me. So I really appreciate you too, Jeremy, and the Katie, and really appreciate. You don't know how much I appreciate to have this chance like this. So thank you very
Mm.
much for asking me to join this session.
Thank you, Mr. Yoshino. I feel the same way.
Yeah, and thank you so much for just sharing the stories. And I think, as you said before, when we were talking, the sharing the stories rather than taking them to your tombstone, or the Japanese phrase. How did you phrase it? The sharing them is really, it's just a treat. I just really commend you both to just telling a great story and creating a wonderful book, and also all this ongoing discussion is just, I feel just extremely fortunate to be able to participate in it. And I thank you both for the conversation. This has been another episode of the Industrial Transformation Podcast.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks for listening to the Industrial Transformation Podcast, a production of Business Builders Media. Learn more about how KCF can help you on your industrial transformation journey at kcftech.com, and check out more shows on businessbuildersmedia.com.